And while she's coming in, hi, Catherine, how are you doing?
Good. Can you see me?
Yes, we can. Thanks for joining us.
Okay.
You know, here's the thing about Meredith. I've been covering your company since the mid-1990s. And back in the day, in the very early days of digital, one of the things that always impressed me about Meredith was that you had that core understanding of the value of the list, of the customer profile, and how central that was to the business model of magazines. And we just call it data now. So there was always that ability, I think, for Meredith to pivot nicely into digital and understand that the core value online was the same as it had been for a century in magazines. And of course, the proof is in the recent history. The home of Better Homes and Gardens and Parents is now also the home of People, of All Recipes, of Martha Stewart Living, InStyle. More magazines. You're the largest magazine publisher in the US. You've got 17 TV stations and many more digital native brands like All Recipes. And yet, of course, you took considerable hits to ad revenues like most others, and also had to implement pay cuts across 60% of your workforce in lieu of doing layoffs or furloughs. But let's explore how your diversified media model, how it's bobbed and weaved. So, Catherine, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
You know, somehow you guys launched product, and a lot of people were developing product, but you did some major launches during this period, and somehow you thought this was a good time to bring in major new brands. Why don't you tell us, you know, both what you did, but why you did it?
Okay, sure. So we're launching new products and have been busy on this front for a while now, and in a variety of areas. So it's not that we're just launching new products during this crisis. They've been in development before then. But let me take you through them. So let's start with voice. Voice, I think we all believe is a growing opportunity. And for us, it's about telling resonant stories in a more intimate, listening environment. So just in the past 2 weeks, we launched 4 podcasts, and all of these podcasts are anchored in one of our brands. So for example, we launched Homemade just last week from All Recipes, and essentially where the author and Next Food Network star Marty Duncan talks with a whole bunch of celebrated cooks like Guy Fieri and Carla Hall about memories and traditions behind their favorite foods. We launched Biscuits and Jam from Southern Living, which is a really fun one. And so our editor-in-chief of the print publication, Sid Evans of Southern Living, talks to musicians, legendary musicians like Martina McBride and Willie Nelson, Leanne Womack, Gladys Knight even, about their hometowns, their big breaks, Southern culture, and how they love Southern food. And the third is We Are Family with Parents, which is really celebrating the diversity of what families look like today. And the fourth is in an interesting category, particularly for now, which is called Let's Go Together. And it's from Travel and Leisure. That's actually launched yesterday. And it's where award-winning travel expert Kelly Edwards talks about inclusivity in the travel space and sharing compelling stories from really diverse voices. And then in the fall, on top of that, even during this time, we are going to be launching a podcast from our biggest brand, People. And it's going to celebrate celebrity and human interest stories, and it will sort of coincide with the way our magazine is structured in print. So those are all podcasts.
You also launched, but you're also launching a magazine, a print magazine.
We are launching magazines as well.
Let's put up an image of that.
Okay.
Jeff, if you could pop up the magazine image for us. Go ahead and tell us about Sweet July.
So Sweet July is a new publication with Aisha Curry. And this is going to be a quarterly publication. And it's very much in line with what we've done with 2 other very successful print launches. And that is with our publication Reveal with the Property Brothers, Drew and Jonathan Scott, which is a home decorating kind of publication. And the other, which is among our most profitable publications, which is Magnolia Journal. So we do these, and they're very, very successful for us. But we're also launching a new multi-platform publication called Millie. I think you may actually have
an image of that too.
An image of that too.
Could you also tell us what have been the challenges of, I mean, everybody is launching stuff though now. What are the challenges of marketing and getting noticed in a very cluttered environment?
Well, it's a great question. So first, we don't just launch publications willy-nilly. We actually, back to your point, we look at the data and we find white space in the market. And we found that there was a growing interest in personal finance, particularly from women. And their needs differ at various age groups. So we really wanted to focus on not just one age group, but multiple age groups. And so we launched this publication called Millie, and it's a new personal finance brand dedicated to helping women achieve their financial goals. So the question is, how do we get it out there? So we use the assets that we have. So this publication, it starts in print. It will also be launched in digital in July this summer. In print, we distributed it to 1 million Real Simple subscribers in the April issue, and it will next go out in the August issue. So we are using the distribution in print that we have today to get it out there to our audiences. We do not have to go create an entirely new list. We have a list of people for this to go to. And so this is also an example of how we tend to launch new print brands. And then once they start gathering momentum of their own, if we believe there's a market for it, we will launch a subscription to that magazine.
And oddly enough, print is actually doing pretty well right now.
It is actually doing pretty well. It's holding up pretty well.
Your sales are up. Your print sales are up.
Well, our the first quarter this year, it's they're up, but they're down starting in March because of COVID. Now, I think that the deeper dip will come in the second quarter because digital is different from print. Print, the books, most of the quarter's books were already closed when COVID hit.
So get back to the data piece. You're leveraging data. How are you leveraging data and addressing advertisers who are fleeing, at least momentarily? And how are you coming to market to try to retain them and introduce product that really is aimed at them?
So it's a great question. So right now, again, a lot of it goes back to a couple things. One is data. The other is a real approach to selling that's much more consultative rather than sell. So it's those two things. So on the first side, let's talk about data. So we have another new product that we launched, which is called predictive advertising. And this we just launched about a month ago or so. And it uses and analyzes billions and billions of micro interactions that we have with our consumers and our lifestyle brands. So, and with that, we can predict consumer intent. So what does that mean? I think there's like an image of how this works that you may actually have, but in real time,
let's bring up the next slide.
Yeah. So when a user comes to our content, and this is on any device, we'll use our proprietary insights and first-party data and the context of the page, as well as a whole bunch of external factors like geolocation, time of day, weather, and multiple other data points. And then that gets run through our AI engine. I think you can see it there. And we can predict at that point who the consumer is, where in the buying cycle they may be. Are they just interested, or are they down the funnel into ready to buy? What product they're likely to buy, and who they're likely to buy it from. And then we go into our campaign assets, and based on that information, we pull the exact asset from the campaign, and it actually is down to the product level. So you may like a certain type of soup, and I may not like something different, and we may be looking at a different recipe and needing different things. So we'll actually pull the campaign asset from our database and promote that particular ad with that particular message to that particular consumer, and allow them actually to put it in a cart and buy it at a local retailer depending on where they are.
So let's pull back and show how something like this is actually responding well to exactly the situation we're in. So you've got a lot of top funnel advertisers fleeing the market. You've got you've got a tool that can help aim a lot of that advertiser interest that is still there and still lively, especially say CPG, and drive it towards places where you can very fully monetize it in ways that other platforms can't.
Yep. So that also allows us to go from the top of the funnel to the bottom of the funnel too. So, we're able, you'd ask sort of how are we dealing with this during this time. So we have a lot of advertisers that work with us for sort of branding and typical display advertising. And we take them all the way down through the bottom of the funnel. And at a time where, many advertisers have pulled back, people wonder, well, how do you monetize all that traffic? And so we then shift and alter our plans to focus a bit more on the bottom of the funnel. So that is with our consumer revenue business, which includes affiliate marketing, it includes promotion codes, it includes our magazine.com and magazine.store products, and it includes our marketplace. So over the years, we've acquired a number of different companies and integrated them into our platform to allow us to really beef up our consumer revenue business, which is up 75% year on year.
So you're using your content to find the intent signals. You've got an AI system in place to start moving direct, marketers that are especially in CPG and in retail, and drive them directly towards outcomes. Exactly.
And I will say that the other thing that we use is our proprietary taxonomy. So we have over the years, Meredith has developed a really deep and rich taxonomy. Typical taxonomy may be 600 to 800 words, and Meredith's taxonomy is 12,000 words plus. And that allows us to really identify what it is that the intent of the consumer. And as I said, direct advertising messages to them based on that intent. So for example, we can tell you the difference between lavender, the color. If something on a page says lavender, our taxonomy will know whether it's lavender the color, lavender the plant, lavender the scent, lavender a paint color, or lavender or a cooking item. And that's how deep and rich our taxonomy is. So we're able to use that taxonomy, get a lot of insight about what our consumers want, and then drive them into down the funnel types of messages.
What are some of the things that have worked well then in retaining those advertising customers during this period? Has this particular product worked particularly well? Are there particular types of conversations that have really resonated well with advertisers who otherwise their instinct was to turn it all off?
Yeah, we have a number of examples of where advertisers came to us just with their knee-jerk reaction, basically saying that they have to pause. We had a lot of pauses or a lot of cancellations certainly in March and in April. So essentially, we have a very consultative sales approach, and it even became much more consultative with them. So with our big advertisers, and so in certain cases, we would come back to them with really clear data and insights about what our consumers wanted and needed during this time, again, based on the first party data that we have, and came back to them and said, you know what, I think your consumers are looking for this, and we think you should message them in this particular way. So as an example, we can change them. We have an organization inside the company called the Foundry, which is our creative group. And they basically went back and changed messages for advertisers, and it saved a number of large campaigns for us. But the big thing here is that it's not a one-size-fits-all solution. I mean, we are with our clients consistently giving them the information that they need to make the decisions that are going to be most helpful for their businesses, whether it's messaging decisions, targeting decisions, which products to push during this particular time, because we can see that as well, and particularly in our consumer business.
Well, and it seems that a lot of publishers are mentioning that they are now even more so than ever before in the insights business, where consumer behaviors are so unpredictable right now. They're changing so quickly that they're being put into a data consultative role with advertising partners. And one of their value adds is we're seeing people behave and show interest and lose interest in real time.
That's exactly right. And our data is real time. So not only do we have the real-time data, but we also have real-time research panels. So we can examine details in our data. And we have what we can now call COVID pulses, which are week over week that we're sharing with our partners directly one-on-one and via newsletters about what are the changes in consumer behavior, their intent, needs, their worries, their anxieties during this time. So we're presenting them with real information that's important to them, to their business.
So critical to all this, though, and especially true for a lot of the publishers who are here in this summit, is using this time especially to lean into first-party data and finding ways to up that. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what is the first-party data strategy plan at Meredith, and what have you been doing over the last few months to really pump up that piece so that list and that taxonomy gets fleshed out?
So our taxonomy and the structure of our platform allows us to create taxonomies immediately. So we actually spun up a whole new taxonomy around COVID and all of the interest areas around that. It could be health, it could be products that people need, it could be what they need and how they're parenting, it could be what they're doing to stay in shape. And so that's a whole new taxonomy that we spun up, or category of our taxonomy. But on top of that, it's interesting, you know, during this time, for all of us are experiencing a huge amount of supply and less demand, right? So prices are going down and CPMs have gone down. Now we're seeing some optimism and they're going back up again, but in the initial phase of COVID, CPMs really plummeted. So not only did we have to respond with our advertisers and our revenue, but then we said, okay, well, what are the opportunities during this time? So we actually leaned into new acquisition efforts. CPMs were down so low that we were acquiring customers and new email signups, new memberships for 30% of what it cost us before. So that's an area where we said, okay, let's invest let's pour money into that particular area, get these users for a lower price, and we know we can monetize them even in the short term, but even more so in the long term.
How did you do now? Meredith also has a pretty strong video component, and always has. How did video take off, but how did you take advantage of it and monetize it?
Video was an interesting one because, you know, one would have thought that, you know, we have studios inside of Meredith, that it would have been very difficult to spin up video when you don't have studios and when there's social distancing. But in fact, our video, March was actually the biggest month ever for video at Meredith, and we were up 85% year on year on our O&O. And in fact, many of our brands actually increased their output. In some cases as high as 30% between March and April, even though we've closed all of our studios. And that's just really from working from home, having editing up in the cloud, which we had been working on even prior to COVID. So we were set for it. But the other interesting thing is you have to be responsive to data yet again. So as the quarantine set in, we thought, okay, let's pay close attention to the topics that are really surging out there. And some, you know, were obvious. Things like how many people get the flu each year, or how to make a face mask, things like that. Those were obvious and very popular, but there were some that were not obvious at all. And that, one of our biggest videos actually of the quarter was from Travel and Leisure, you know, a site that nobody's traveling at this point. And that site spun up a really interesting video on museum tours, virtual museum tours. And it was a huge, huge hit. So that allows that video alone, I mean, basically made our month in terms of video.
Well, but then how do you, but that's in a category that was one of the first to shut off during the travel and leisure were the first category to shut off in terms of advertising. So how did you successfully monetize that huge bump in that category?
Well, video happens to be one of the areas, the fastest growing areas of advertising. And we still found that our advertisers were willing to spend for pre-roll. Mm-hmm. So we have not nearly reached our capacity in terms of the amount of video and video views we can supply to the demand that's out there.
So even though there's this huge,
yes,
even though there's this huge bump in streaming, and we're seeing like double-digit increases,
yes,
you still have
we're still on the upswing in terms of how much video we produce and how much we can get out there to our audience.
Now, the other piece, and again, this is part of the diversification piece, I think, at Meredith, is and we mentioned this earlier, but the strong e-commerce stream that you've got, both in affiliate links. You've also got a lot of licensing. I think the Martha Stewart products. I think you're like the second biggest licensing company other than Disney, if I recall. So
right.
tell us how that piece has played into sort of the survival strategy for Meredith over the last few months, and because it seems to be tied to a lot of these other pieces.
Well, it is, and we define consumer revenue essentially as it includes both digital consumer revenue, the stuff we talked about, affiliate, marketplace, promo codes, magazine subscriptions, but it also includes our licensing business, right? Which is ultimately, as you said, we're the second biggest licensor in the world, behind Disney. And interestingly enough, that business is on fire right now because people are at home. So it's mostly the Better Homes and Gardens brand, although we are working to the point of innovation on spinning up entirely new brands with different brands of ours besides Better Homes and Gardens. But the Better Homes and Gardens business at Walmart is gigantic. And because people are at home and spending a lot of time at home, improving their homes, doing home decorating, fixing their bathrooms, etc., getting new sheets, new towels, that business is on fire. So we've experienced terrific revenue gains in that particular area. So we happen to be lucky. 50% of our revenue across the company does come from consumer revenue.
50% of revenue comes from that.
Yes.
Wow.
From not just from licensing, from that whole bucket
but
that
from
we
that
call
whole
consumer revenue.
bucket. All right.
Yeah.
And you've also been, one of the things that you've been doing is you've been shifting a lot of your advertising focus to that lower funnel, right?
Yes, exactly right. So yet again, an area where data comes into play. So, as we could see, some areas decline during COVID, things that you need to travel with, etc. Other areas were surging, and we're in areas that are really, really important for consumers right now. So we're in health, we're in staying in shape, we're in parenting, we're cooking, we're in entertainment. So all these areas, home design, gardening, all these areas are areas where consumers were really interested in. So we found that, for example, there were huge, sharp increases in essentials that were related to sheltering in place. Face masks initially, hand sanitizers, cleaning supplies. Then came the home office furniture, cooking and kitchen items like knife sets and Dutch ovens, baking supplies. Those are up like 250% year on year for consumer revenue, affiliate marketing for us. Home items, bedding, decor, furniture, that's up. I think this category is up 10% year on year. And it goes on. And then we, of course, have our Meredith performance marketing, which is our lead gen business. And so we had to shift a little bit on that too, where people maybe not necessarily wanting people to come into their homes to fix things, right? So getting a home advisor into your home, and they may have shifted more towards streaming. And so being able to do opportunities in performance marketing to categories that we're seeing lifts during that particular time. So you have to be really nimble to be able to shift that quickly.
Well, and have the diversity so that you actually have those places to direct traffic and intent to, so you can monetize it.
Exactly.
I want to signal to our audience that if you have questions, please again raise your hand, and we will come to you and get you in queue. Catherine, let me ask you the tedious question I'm asking everybody. What did you, as we move forward, what have you learned over the last 3 months you didn't know or didn't fully appreciate 3 months ago that you think moving forward it's going to be a permanent change for you?
Okay, so there are the two things that I think are not exclusive to Meredith, right? So I don't know that we thought we could be so productive so fast working from home. So I think most people found that, right, in their companies, or a lot did. Like, wow, we were up and running within a day. And in fact, some of our teams are more productive working from home. I think it's going to be harder to get everybody back than it was to get everybody home. Second is communication is really, really key during this time. So if you're working with a 100% remote team, you've got to over communicate. I think we're all spending a lot of time on this notion, on Zoom. I think we learned very quickly that And we'd known this and we'd invested a lot in it, but just how critically important data really is. And not just the data itself, but how to quickly use it, adapt, and change your content strategy, change your selling strategy, change your product strategy around that. And I think that we'll probably end up launching new consumer products based on what we've learned during this period of time. So we have a studio inside of Meredith. It's our product studio. And what it does is it essentially, I said to you earlier, identifies white space from our data. And we then go actually develop physical products, most of the time in conjunction with our advertisers or our marketing partners, where we say, look, you know, there's an opportunity in this particular category. We'll go to a partner in that particular category that creates products of that kind of nature and create an actual new brand. So we did that with Scott's Miracle Grow for our Knock Knock D2C brand, which is a brand that is a delivery service of plants to your door every quarter. And we'll be doing a lot more of that. So I think, you know, if I could say two very big things, which is the use of data and the agile and the ability to quickly adjust your strategy based on it. And the second thing is this notion of developing very long-term relationships with our marketing partners. So while people may be pulling back at this particular time, what we're actually doing is signing multi-year, multi-million-dollar joint business partnerships with big advertisers. And it's not just for traditional media. There's a data component. Very often there's a product development component to it. There is a native content component to it. And then there's traditional media. So we're actually leaning in and have signed a number of very large multi-year contracts because we've been so consultative with our marketing partners.
Well, Catherine, we have time for questions. Lisa, do we have some questions?
Yes, we do. Brendan McClellan, he has a question. Brendan, just introduce yourself and let us know where you're from.
Yeah, hi everyone. Hi Steve, hi Lisa, hi Catherine. It's Brendan McClellan with JW Player. Catherine, the predictive advertising platform slide is really great and interesting. Being that I'm coming from a video background, you wouldn't be surprised by my question. How are you guys thinking about leveraging this platform for contextual-based targeting as it relates to video as opposed to display?
I think that we will see that coming. I think the next step is really connecting it much more closely to the bottom of the funnel. Directly clicking to cart, going to purchase it. You know, that's part of what we're working on right now. And I think very soon after you'll see that with video. And there's no reason why we can't do that with video if we have the data associated with that video, and we would work with our clients to be able to do that. Because it does require different messages, right? So it requires different assets and different messages to different audiences. So
before we wrap, coming off that question, I want to slip this one in. Meredith is sort of been known in recent years for having guarantees with advertisers. Just quickly tell us a little bit about that, and how has that fared? How have you used that during this period?
So it's also a very good question. So one of the areas that we pivoted to very quickly was on the print side. And what we heard was that advertisers really need solutions and ideas in real time, and they're looking for ROI on every single dollar. So we employed our real-time insights, yet again with our data, and we offered our partners what we call the Meredith Audience Action Guarantee, the MAG. And it guarantees that a specific number of readers will take an actual action based on the result of seeing a brand campaign within Meredith magazines. So it's the magazine answer to, you know, being able to showcase views and clicks and purchases on the digital side. So it's delivering a value, a verified, effective solution for accountability in print.
Were you able to leverage that in particular during this crisis in any ways?
Yes, many of our clients have signed on to that Meredith Action Guarantee, Audience Action Guarantee.
Catherine, I wish we had more time. You obviously, Meredith is vast. There are